This is Progress Culture. Progress Culture is a weekly happening where master drummer Paul F. Murphy and I share live improvised music and conversation with people from a variety of fields and expertises about the significance of human creativity in the advancement of ideas, culture, community, freedom, and progress for all. We're excited to have you here, so let's get into the show. But first, let's hear some music! Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Progress Culture. I am Dominic Fragman here with Paul Murphy of Sonic Spirits, which also includes our favorite poet, Jere Carroll Murphy. And we are really stoked to be here today with Tommy Luganbill, our regular champion and friend of the show.
Hello.
And Caitlin Goff, my good friend. She is a singer that we've played some gigs together. And she is also the founder, or co-founder, of a nonprofit organization called Phenomenal Women.
That's all true.
Yes, and she does a lot of very positive things and good work in the community to help women express themselves through art who usually don't, I think, or not. Maybe it's not necessary that they don't, but just to get more women involved in the creation of art and as something of true value in therapy and health and good mindset and all those things. So we are really excited to have her here with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing your take on actually a question that I sort of have preconceived, which comes from an episode of ours I think it was episode 13. It was early on, and we were in the hangar, and it was me and Paul and Tommy and North America's greatest hand model, Alex Walker, who's womaning the camera right now. And the question was...
Nice.
The question is, we'll start with you, Caitlin. If you woke up this morning or whatever other morning and you grabbed the paper and the front page headline was "Art Saves the World," what is it that you think would have happened?
I just thought about myself emotionally in that moment, and I got excited, even though I'd be like, how? What? My first thought about art saving the world is that, what would that look like? Oh, Dominic, I'm actually stumped. It's so hard to know.
What would art have done? What would it have saved the world from?
I think maybe art would have given voice to oppressed people. And that voice would somehow have to enable those people to rise up from oppression. So that could mean a million things, right?
Sure.
But that's what that looks like to me.
I like that answer.
Okay, good. All right. All right.
So, I guess, what about you, Tommy? You have any thoughts on that?
I feel I hope I'm not repeating myself, but...
consistency is fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's boring. I don't know. When she just said that, I started to think about whose world. And I don't remember if I talked about that last time, but so I would agree with what she said about saving people who are being oppressed as something that I think I would be excited about, and many people would be. But then I think about, for people to be saved, someone else's world needs to be destroyed. And she's shaking her head no.
That doesn't mean that you should stop.
No, I'm not. But I'll say it like this: it doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, that someone's current view of the world or their world in itself is destroyed. It just means that a new one is created. And that's fine. And so by saving the world, I think maybe there's a undertone that it's still the same world that it was when it needed saving. And so once the world has been saved, it's really just a new world. And I think that'll be great for many, many people. And I think for many people, it's going to be hard at first, but then it's gonna all have to come together.
Interesting. So, and would you say that headline for you would in the ideal situation would read more something other than art saves the world and more like art brings the new world, or
probably something like that,
heralds the new world?
I don't want to like go down the rabbit hole of the new world order, because there's too many negative connotations that are associated with that.
Right.
But
especially like the World Wrestling Federation.
The World Wrestling Foundation, yeah, Federation, yeah. But yeah, the headline would be one of those that has like a what is that, a semicolon?
Yes.
Art saves the world, creates new world order, something of that sort. Because it has to be new.
Or the world evolves.
Or evolution or something to that.
Art evolves the world.
I listened to a prior episode where y'all were talking about creation and destruction and cycles, and I had actually texted Dominic because I had to pause it numerous times and walk away because I was frustrated that I couldn't participate in the conversation.
Right.
And I was just had so much to say to you all, and I was not here to do it.
Here you
and
are.
It was in the past and everything. It was very frustrating for me. Everyone feel bad, but when you're talking, it's that's the same idea of like creation and destruction are cycles and they're happening at the same time. And so when I first shook my head no, I was like, you don't have to destroy. Like I thought what you were indicating was that you had to destroy the world first and like build something new from flame. And then I understood. So I apologize. But
does it feel good to get it out in real time?
thank you. It really, no, this is excellent. Thanks so much.
Pull over on the
Thank
side
you
of
for
the road.
asking. Thanks for caring so much.
Great.
But I agree they can happen. They have to happen simultaneously for it to work. So the creation of this new world can only happen if destruction of the old ideas that are oppressive happens. It has to happen, I guess, simultaneously.
Sure.
So I agree with that.
But where does the art fit into that though? Does it spark it, or does it keep it going, or does it do both? This idea of creation of a new world.
Both is my instinct to say, because even if you're not artistic though, you can work toward a new world order. You can work toward progress. So art sparks the people that are moved by art, but humanity and our human nature sparks it on a greater level. And then artists, I think, find language and ways to help all humans, I guess, move toward what they want. I hope I'm making sense. I'm done now.
No. I think this is. I think that's a perfectly fine answer and a clear answer. Art sparks humanity to move in the direction that they want. That's what you're saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fair, and I think there's many examples of that in our history, whether or not it's 50,000-year-old cave drawings, or it's something that's more along the lines of a more, I won't say modern practice, but there's a contemporary practice now of whether or not it's someone like Bansky or someone who is directly putting on display the breaking down of gender constructs or racial constructs around what they're incorporating into their art as something that hasn't been included before or something that hasn't been given the spotlight before. These things are the voice of a people, which oftentimes represents more than one or two, right? It's a group of people who have these ideas of how to move forward, and art has often been right there on the forefront with them, on the avant-garde of these things, whether or not it's civil issues or social issues or something that's more involved in science and technology.
Right. I was trying to decide when you asked the question, what, like we all were, like what does saving the world even mean? And I didn't want to answer you in a way that was too limited, but I've decided now, based on what you were talking about, based on what you're saying, that it is about that art saving the world. To directly relate it to what I do and what I believe in, is about empowering women through the arts and through in whatever ways people want to feel empowered, but especially through the arts, so that they can use their voices and be effective in leadership and welcomed into leadership. I think I actually know that a lot of what's wrong with this, the society we live in is the exclusion of women from leadership. That lack of representation does lead to unnecessary conflict, violence, wars. Women in leadership leads to saving the world simply because it means less conflict. Women are not perfect. No one is perfect. But when women are in charge, countries don't run to war in the same way. I think it's pretty obvious based on history and women-led organizations. And I think the arts are the way to do it, because when you find your voice specifically, I'm a singer, but it's not just about that voice. When you find your voice, when you're writing, when you're talking, ooh, hit it. You're able to advocate for yourself and other people. And that's where power is. You can advocate for yourself and others, and you can do almost anything when you start there. Ooh, I got excited thinking about it.
Paul, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to point out that this is a comment. This is a thing that you bring up often, and as recent as last episode when we were talking about trends, and Paul pointed out the trend of trying to get a woman president.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know if you want to expand on it.
Well, I mean, I just feel as though that women have not had access and the opportunity to be, let's say, even 50% in charge of the governing or progress of a nation.
Right.
And during the course of many women's lives, they actually do give birth to children.
Correct.
So they have quite a large feeling about humanity, which oftentimes men do not have that instantaneous feeling about humanity, and their instantaneous often ends up in bap. Oh, and now it's not just one-on-one in the street, it's city to city or country to country.
Right.
Or let's have a war. And then we have a war, we can all generate money for the 4 or 5 people that started the war.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that you have a lot to say, and I don't. I know I talked
You're
for a
totally
while.
out of talk. Go for it.
I always have a lot to say. You're not disrupting that. Don't worry.
You said men, bap. And I don't mean to be crude, but I did compare that to, in my head, the way that fathers and mothers are involved in the creation of life. Mm-hmm. And the man's involvement is a quicker one, whereas the woman has the 9 months of development with that child, and that their part in that creation is much slower, and therefore
Right.
not more valuable, because obviously both are essential, and we need to make human beings in order to make the progress that we so desire. But yes, it makes sense then that it makes sense that the way that men maybe think about leadership or creation might be different, when the way that literally we're created is so our involvement is so different. It's
Right.
really
I mean,
interesting.
my wife, Jere, who's a poet and has to work as a building manager, when she gave birth to our son, Sonny, I was there with her in our apartment, and that's where we birthed Sonny.
Cool.
So, I mean, that was quite a learning experience on
sure.
my end, when she herself, Jere, was totally comfortable with doing it, because it would have been her second time in life of doing it that way.
Paul brings up this point, so I didn't have the gusto to participate in a birth at home. Okay, so my wife had our daughter in a hospital, but the thing that I actually remember saying to my wife, she probably has no memory of this because she was like way out of it at that point.
Sure, yeah.
But there were 4 nurses and 1 doctor that were in like the final delivery of my daughter, and every single one of them was a woman. And number one, I was way happier that they were all women, because of the understanding of the process. I think 3 out of the 5 were moms, so they'd actually done it before, rather than just read about it in a textbook like a guy would. And then the second thing that I thought was really interesting was like, these people do not get enough credit for what they are doing in terms of
I remember you saying that.
bringing life into the world. And
No, women get enough credit. What are you talking about?
not even just the mother.
Oh, right, the actual
The
course.
nurses in particular.
Sure.
And I'm like, there's literally no more important job in the world. I mean, why is everyone here, right? You want to be alive, you want to live nice lives and hopefully help people. How can you even put a price tag on any of that? But somehow we do, right? And we don't treat it in the way that I believe it should be. And we pay people for banking and, finance things and all this other crap. But like a nurse, there's a nurse who is in a delivery room. There's truly nothing more important than that.
Like, maybe that's a big leap to use the language that way, but like, we forget that these technical or medical jobs, I think sometimes we forget that like being a nurse, being that specialized is a technical job, but it is also there is such an art and a finesse to that is so valuable. And when we recognize the art in these things, in making like the best sandwich in the world, in making, because that can be really beautiful at like an incredible food truck, right? Like that's beautiful too, that's an art. So if we started seeing things that way, I think we could treat people much more equally.
Have you ever seen the movie This Is the End?
Is that Steve Carell?
It's the end of the world. It's Armageddon. Seth Rogen.
No, didn't see that.
Okay, it's a little crazy movie, but someone who's in it, who most people aren't very happy with right now, has a quote, and this guy enters his house and he's looking at these paintings and he's like, "That's not art," and the guy's like, "Yes, it is," and he goes, "Do you like art?" And the guy says, "No, I don't," because he's just trying to end the conversation, and the guy whose house it is like, "You don't like art? Of course you do." What is his example? He goes, "Have you ever been to Subway? When they're making your sandwiches, that's art." So to your point, the reason I'm saying this is because it was a silly movie.
Sure, yeah.
But his point was not lost on me in that there is an art in almost everything.
Right. To do it well, to do it at a high level, to do it with with care.
Let's run with that. If the headline is "Art Saves the World" and art isn't necessary, art is the care of in craft, the consideration of value, and the attempt to put it on display in a way that you find X. I would say beautiful, but I wouldn't want to influence somebody with the concept of beauty as a limited parameter thing. I think existence is beautiful.
Sure.
We were driving down the road today, and I was explaining to Paul that I think one of the things that I try to capture when I'm playing any time is the majesty of existence. It's so majestic, and we were on the Beltway, and I was like, even this has a majestic quality just because it is. And I think if that's what you're talking about, and we're extrapolating that mindset into our daily lives and every aspect that we can, then without referencing or regard for a painting or music or poetry or any of these things, that the mindset of that consideration that it takes to have that kind of craft and appreciation or whatever is absolutely a way that could save the world. If everybody was more directly engaged in that kind of thinking, I think people would be more going towards understanding, going towards embracing one another, going towards open communication and freedom, peace, and prosperity for everyone.
I just got excited because I also realized that when in a world like that, people would be hopefully more empowered, excited, less afraid of embracing art as we know it, as a room full of artists, that make music or visual art or whatever in that traditional way we think of it. I got excited about that because with Phenomenal
we
Women...
said no excitement before the show started, remember?
I don't care. So
Fair enough.
I got excited about that because we right now... I've had experiences through Phenomenal Women. We've hosted workshops and clinics where we get women involved that are that come to participate. That are some that are artists that call themselves that self-identify as artists, and people that do not. And that is a big difference. You wouldn't necessarily. It shocked me. After a workshop in which the clinician taught Blackout Poetry, where you. It's what it sounds like. You have a marker and you use a newspaper or whatever, and you mark, or a book, and you mark out words to create poetry with what's remaining. Sure. And that's a great accessible way to start if you don't consider yourself a poet. You don't have to generate the content. You have content that you can, subtract from.
Which is probably also an avenue to less self-scrutiny.
Exactly. It's great for that. I didn't think of it, so I can say, what a great idea. And a friend's mom participated in this. She's dealt with a lot of grief. Her son and her husband had passed away in the past few years, and it was really hard. And she said, I've never considered myself a poet or an artist, but in doing this, I got to deal with feelings in a way that I hadn't before, and I made something. And she didn't, hearing that in her voice, talking to her, I moved to this day thinking about it. So anyway, in a world where we saw everything as art, would people actually feel like they could make art? And even non-artists, if we all saw ourselves that way, and we saw the potential aesthetic beauty in many things, and we broadened that, hopefully people will be less afraid to do things, not to be good at them, but to find joy and expression.
I think all of that is absolutely true, and I think if I could just add some mumbo jumbo on it, I would say, there's got to be something about participating in the act of creation, just like what you guys were saying, like whether or not it is producing a child or whatever the proper word, birthing a child, having children on both sides or all sides of that, just to be involved in the creation of this entity, this life. But the creation of something in general is very exhilarating and very sort of, for me, has been life-changing. And I sort of, I'm not a religion. I don't practice religion, but I am very familiar with it. I was brought up Catholic, and one of the things that they always said was, we are created in the image of the divine. And if the divine, if you're willing to go on this journey with me, if the divine is the creator of all things, then being created in that image is also the sort of one of the paramount things you can do is create stuff. If you're creating, you're going to have a different pulse on things, I think. So
when people are working with your organization, you said you have people that are self-identified as artists and people that aren't.
Yes.
What types of things are you working with these people to do? I would assume some of it has to do with what you said, which is traditional art, maybe painting or something like that. But I would also guess that you do all sorts of things.
So Solid guess. Phenomenal Women amplifies women's voices and helps young women find that voice through creative arts experiences. And that does tend to mean through the arts, again, like as we think of them. So music, visual art, and performance, that idea, mostly because my co-founder Haley and I are artists. So that's what we know and feel that we are most able to help other people with, because we met in music school, right? That covers all sorts of stuff, and a lot of what we're doing right now is trying to figure out what programming is actually most effective and most needed, because we want to do everything. That's kind of we just want to help and try it all. So we've had workshops in which we had a writer come in and facilitate other writers and creators. It was called Create, Heal, Bloom, and we went through the process in which we talked about how the creation of said thing was cathartic for the women that were involved in the project. And they created, one person wrote a song, another person wrote a poem. It was different mediums. We held a camp day for young women this summer. We had 10 to 14-year-old girls come, and they did one workshop. They did a project where they had a face mask, like a full mask, that they painted the outside to be how the world perceives them, and the inside to be how they perceive themselves. Wow. My friend Sherelle Langine is an art therapist, and that was her idea. I know, so good.
Wow. That's some heavy crap.
I know. I told my father about it, and he goes, people that age are thinking about how the world perceives them and how they think of themselves. And I was like, well, I mean, girls definitely are. I think we all are.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but
isn't that part of like school, like
right,
public school?
Isn't that everything? I think
I was always, we had this conversation yesterday.
Yeah.
I was always told, don't give two shits about what anybody else thinks about you.
Oh, right.
But I had, that's whether or not you're doing that. I think that itself is an active process. So maybe you're not thinking about what people think about you, but you're trying not to.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yes, you're very much engaged in that process.
I say all that just to say, like, that wasn't the whole day. A lot of what we believe in is that getting people together and creating community is just as important, and is really actually the reason that we make art. So there's nothing wrong with making solitary art. That's beautiful and important. That's all great and fine. But the purpose of Phenomenal Women is very specifically to bring people together. So those young women, they're all best friends by the end. It's adorable with girls that age. And probably kids. You spend a day together. Yeah. What's your phone number? Let's hang out. It's so sweet. At the end. But community building is the main purpose. So when you ask, like, well, you probably do things outside of it. Really, the byproducts are bigger than art, but what we do is mostly through art.
Nice.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That's very admirable, and I know everybody in this room appreciates that there's people like you doing things like that.
That's kind. Thanks.
Where can they find Phenomenal Women?
Right here. No, I'm just kidding. That was lame. Okay, phenomenalwomen.org. Women is spelled with an XN because we are inclusive of all people that identify as femme. So
I don't think people know how to spell phenomenal.
PHENOMENALWOMXN.org.
There we go.
All right.
I was like, I'm going to misspell phenomenal just because it's out loud.
Well,
we got it.
We really appreciate you being here, and I want to say two things, I guess. One is when you were talking about, for anybody that's watching and saw me giggling and looking that way, when you were talking about the role of men and women in the act of child having and birthing.
I saw hand model hands go up.
She made a comment earlier about the same thing. She's like, men's involvement is just like bop. So
hopefully it's a few bops.
Yeah. I gotta go. See ya.
Anyway,
no.
The other thing is, what'd you guys
I wasn't ready.
What'd you guys think about the music today?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I loved watching you two converse. That's what I was doing. It was so exciting. It was a beautiful conversation. you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't know. What about you?
Terrible. No, I like the
Thank you.
acoustic.
Yeah.
Much more necessary for my ADD lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the acoustic for some reason was the vibe that I was trying to feel.
Nice.
And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the electric,
Agreed.
Right.
but there's a little more aggressive nature to the electric.
So actually, we started off doing this music when we first started to play it together and work on it was on that guitar.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the sort of catalysts for bringing it back was Matt Hayes. Southern Maryland Loves You was like, yo, when are you gonna play that nylon string, Paul? And he's like, I want to hear that. So
It's good.
Push the issue, and we've been thoroughly enjoying it. So.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider trying to isolate the sounds you make with your mouth while you're playing?
So this is something that we've been toying with because everybody else seems to
Ask that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
I'm not cool at all.
No. The reason why it's not happening is because I am very self-confident about it. And every time we record it, and today is the first day that I didn't put a microphone back there in probably 2 months. Because I feel so like it's just not happening, man. I gotta get better at doing it or something, you know? It's not, I don't know. But I appreciate that you are in it must be something that we should do because lots of people say, man, that stuff you're doing with your voice is really awesome. I wish I could hear it more.
I'm really curious, and I wonder if you'd ever want to use it in recordings, even if you wanted to change the sound quality of it and like mess with it. Like, I don't know if you ever would. If it's like a sound you'd want to work with. I don't know.
I think that it is. Honestly, I do. I like because it somehow contributes to the aura of the music and this choir that you think you're hearing somehow. And it would be nice to be able to capture it, but every time I try to capture it, I hear it, and I'm like, wow.
Oh, no. Of course you're going to judge yourself. Because
Yeah.
it's not singing. It's like listening to yourself talk almost.
It's like listening to yourself grunt more than it's like listening
Yeah.
to yourself talk.
I like that it's not singing. I think that makes it interesting. But also, I wouldn't want to listen to myself do that. No. You got to find a way to like not hear it while you're doing it. It would be horrible
Well, it's
for
not
me.
so much hearing it while I'm doing it as is when I sit down and listen to the recording again, and I'm like, oof. Why do we need to hear that again?
Let someone else listen first before you do.
I'll work on it.
Okay.
But thank you for that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
thank you very much for being here.
Yes.
The door is
Thank you.
open. Please come back and join us sometime.
All
And yeah, we'll keep it going.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We're going to be doing this again next week. And remember, if you have any ideas about how to, make forward progress in any discipline, whatever you're doing, if you've got cool ideas, we'd love to hear them. Please share them with us. And if you don't want to share them with us, share them with each other because that's the way that's going to make it happen. So thank you all for being here. We'll see you on the next time. Thank you all for being with us. We appreciate your time and consideration. And, as always, please feel free to reach out to us at progressculture.org and sonic-spirits.com. We are building a community that supports positivity and progress for all, and in all fields. If you have any ideas about how to do that, please share them with us, share them with each other, and we can make it happen. Thanks for watching and listening. We hope to see you on the next one. Much love.